From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
A trash panda party or an infestation? We'll see what one woman is facing in Washington state, cleaning up from Hurricane Helene.
There's just all kinds of odd things, so I think it'll be a lot of cleanup to even get to where you can even assess anything.
We'll see what's left of one farmer's crop as Hurricane Milton slams into Florida.
There's a lot of cleanup ahead of us.
The impact and the possible repercussions for the ag industry right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these feeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Hurricane Milton has left a path of devastation across Florida. The monster storm dumping record rain, devastating winds, and causing dozens of tornadoes to form. Ivan Rodriguez has the latest on the third hurricane to hit Florida this year.
This is the first time we've seen it this bad.
While all eyes were on Hurricane Milton's monstrous anticipated storm surge,
You can feel that tornado coming through.
a wave of fast-spawning tornadoes added to the storm's destructive impact in several cities.
We always prepare for the hurricanes. There's no way we could have predicted this type of tornadic activity.
At one point in St. Lucie County, 3 twisters hit the ground in less than 25 minutes, according to an analysis of National Weather Service data. Those tornadoes are blamed for several fatalities, a number that could rise as search crews continue to assess and clear damaged structures. Daylight hours Thursday are bringing the full scope of Milton's damage into focus. Some areas outside of the evacuation zones were not immune to the storm's fury.
We had people that evacuated here to make sure they were safe. These are people that live day to day, and they have nothing.
Some roads are still dangerous due to flooding, debris, and potential downlines. Do not risk it.
Milton's storm surge, though less than expected, still landed a powerful punch, with some areas seeing a surge of more than 5 feet over normal high tides. St. Petersburg experienced a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall, and Naples hitting their second highest watermark on record. Water rescue teams were busy overnight and throughout the day. As Milton moves out to sea off Florida's east coast, it leaves a storm-exhausted but optimistic state behind.
There's a lot of cleanup ahead of us, but we've done this before and we're going to do it again.
I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting for AgDay.
And we've told you Tampa is home to a great deal of fertilizer production. It's reported Mosaic's Riverview facility in Tampa was dealing with some water from the storm surge from that hurricane, but was looking to be back into full production later this week, while Nutrien's White Springs phosphate facility north of Tampa was still assessing the damage. As much as 42% of U.S. ammonium phosphate, 32% of U.S. phosphate rock, and half of the U.S. wet processed phosphoric acid production capacity is located near Tampa Bay. Now, market watchers say the impact of the hurricane is going to continue to lead to elevated phosphate prices for the foreseeable future. And fruit prices could be impacted as well by Hurricane Milton. Florida accounts for 17% of the nation's citrus production. World Weather says preliminary wind data suggests widespread citrus fruit droppage as a result of excessive winds. It also says flooding may have impacted fruit and vegetable crops that are produced close to the ground. While cleanup is just starting for Hurricane Milton, it's well underway from Hurricane Helene. And for some producers in western North Carolina, there doesn't appear to be much that's salvageable. Linda Loveland with the North Carolina Farm Bureau spoke with one producer.
We're in Henderson County, one of the hardest hit areas after Hurricane Helene. I'm with Linda Pryor. She is an apple farmer, but also a row crop farmer. She has 900 acres of corn. We're in one of her cornfields. Today was the first day that you've gotten to take a look at it. Right. What was that? I mean, it is absolutely flattened.
I was expecting it to be bad. I wasn't expecting it to be all the way down like this. I could see one other field that we just were passing earlier, and it was closer to the water, so I was, so I thought this one would be a little safer, but the water just got higher than we've ever seen it before.
Just overcame it all. And you were saying, so earlier this year you had a bit of a drought and some heat, so it started off a little rough, but it's been great.
So right after we planted, we were incredibly dry, and really worried about it coming out of that. But then we did, and we were really excited. It looked really good, and now.
Well, because let's take a look and see what, I mean, it was, it's started to rot already. Look at that. Look at all the dust. Oh my gosh. Look at that.
So we had good ears.
They were all filled out.
Yeah, and they're already. So we would have started harvesting this week. So when it happened, we were about a week away from when we were started. So all of the corn was still up like this, and so the rainwater just went in the top. So that's what the tops are already starting to. Well, they're already starting to sprout from having the water. So, you know, it wouldn't have helped in this situation, but maybe in some of our fields where the water just got up high and didn't get down like this, had they been turned already, it could have, you know, some of the water would have come off, but instead it just has all gone straight in.
That's tough.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that you guys have seen, everybody's saying this is a historic flooding event.
Oh, yeah. I mean, nothing even, this field, we've had some flooding in, but it might get never ever to the ear. And never, just I think the current of the water and the amount of junk that it's washed in. There's just all kinds of odd things. So I think it'll be a lot of cleanup to even get to where you can even assess anything, because there's so much stuff in here.
Yeah. Oh goodness. I'm sorry about this and for your loss, and it's spread across the whole part of Western North Carolina. But thank you for letting us share your story, Linda.
Thank you.
All right. I'm Linda Loveland for the North Carolina Farm Bureau.
Now, despite all the rain in the southeast, much of the rest of the country has remained dry. Current topsoil moisture ratings show that on average 52% of the nation is in short to very short supply. That's up 7 points from just last week. Just 3% of the country has a surplus of topsoil moisture.
We're still looking at numbers greater than 30% surplus in Virginia and Florida. That, of course, in Florida is a concern as Milton moves through with quite a bit of surplus topsoil moisture even before the storm hits.
The dryness is a concern in several winter wheat growing states where planting is underway and the crop is starting to emerge. While the southeast deals with heavy rain and flooding, in the northeast there's snow. Vermont's Killington Resort, known as the Beast of the East, received its first snow of the season. Now, it's located on the second highest mountain in Vermont. The resort is historically one of the first to open in New England. Last season, it opened on November 3rd. Cooler weather appears to finally be on the way for much of the Midwest. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has a look ahead.
Yeah, we're going to look at that long-term pattern, and we'll do that with the jet stream coming up in a little bit. What you start to see is some cooler air trying to come back in. A stronger front, one that we haven't seen much of this entire month, tries to come through. But it's going to set up a different pattern, a more fall-like pattern across the United States. We'll start right there. 15th through the 19th, not a big selection in terms of our temperatures, but the heat will remain through about the 19th. Cooler than average conditions back down here to the south and to the southeast. Now going forward past the 19th, we're going to see another chance at some cold air trying to fill in and across the United States. More importantly, though, it's going to be dry air. So those overnight lows are going to dip down a little bit more. So I wouldn't necessarily get used to the heat sticking around. We're going to fluctuate back and forth between the heat and the cool air as we start to even things out. And this picture just gives us all of the feels. Anthony, Saskatchewan, sharing this picture. He says he took the little one through the barn, and she said when she was excited to sit on Grandpa's tractor. Great to see, especially that smile. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
Purchase with a Purpose is brought to you by the Mighty Micro from Mosaic Micro Essentials. We put more in so you can get more out. Visit microessentials.com to learn more.
An important decision could soon be coming on what's being touted as the world's largest carbon capture pipeline. North Dakota's Public Service Commission is reportedly getting closer to deciding on Summit Carbon Solutions' proposed carbon capture pipeline. It would link 57 ethanol plants across 5 states to a storage site in North Dakota. Now, the project would store captured emissions underground. Summit has said it has secured 80% of the necessary land through voluntary easements. Meanwhile, Iowa's Supreme Court heard arguments this week about the company's right to access private land for surveying its proposed pipeline. That case stems from a Hardin County landowner's refusal to allow Summit access to his farm. A ruling on that isn't expected before June of next year. It was another mixed day for markets here during harvest season. We'll set expectations ahead of another USDA report coming up next. And later, raccoons, trash pandas, bandits, no matter what you call them, they're cute until too many show up. We'll tell you how a Washington State woman learned that lesson the hard way in the country.
Purchase with a Purpose is brought to you by Frontier Precision Agriculture, who knows farming success demands the best efficiencies and smart decision making. Get your field intelligence at frontierprecision.com/ag.
A new report shows farm debt rose in the last quarter. The Kansas City Federal Reserve releasing its latest Ag Finance update. It shows farm operating debt at commercial banks has seen a significant increase, with non-real estate farm debt growing by about 10% compared to the previous year. At ag banks, non-real estate debt rose by 15%. Now, experts say the rise in farm debt can be attributed to a softening ag economy, lower farm sector liquidity, and higher financing needs among farmers. But despite the rise in debt, delinquency rates remain low. It says about 1% of real estate and non-real estate farm loans were past due by at least 30 days in the second quarter. Corn and soybeans all struggled on Thursday. AgDay's Michelle Rook has more on the markets ahead of today's big report from USDA and Markets Now.
Grains closing mixed on Thursday. John Heinberg is joining us with analysis and some pressure in corn and soybeans on Thursday again. You know, do we continue to kind of leak here because of harvest pressure, or are we taking out some of this South American weather premium?
I think it's a combination of both of those that's affected the grains on Thursday. Obviously, we've seen the rains pick up in South America. We watch the radars are growing a little bit more in coverage every single day, and those longer range models look like they're bringing some really good moisture in. I think that's something that's been weighing on the soybean market. On the corn side too, hedge pressure is out there now, maybe getting more into the corn side of the equation. Producers have been really pushing soybeans here, so I think that's been a big factor. But now maybe that energy is moving over into the corn side of the market a little bit more, even despite some of the demand figures and things for corn and both soybeans been doing pretty well here lately.
Yeah, Thursday exports were good for both corn and beans, but you got to figure that we're also supporting up for the WASDE coming up here today. So maybe a little caution from traders on that?
I think that's part of it too. We just got some position squaring, getting ready for the report here on Friday. Obviously they exited those short positions at quick pace here the last couple of weeks. So they built some length into that market, probably, paring some of that back here. Just don't want to be leaning too far one way or another. Still expecting soybean numbers, even if the yield moves around or comes down a little bit, still going to be extremely heavy. One of the largest carryouts in the last decade. So that could be just a limiting factor on the market. And just like might be the corn side of it a little bit, with a possible move in yield and some of the demand that we've seen. Can we get this carryout number under 2 billion bushels?
And John, the wheat market continues to add maybe warm weather premium. How much do you think we need to have in this market?
That Russian wheat crop really, kind of drives the global wheat prices. So the weather conditions have not improved there, and that's still something that's going to keep some premium in this market. Now we got this meeting today with the Russian Ag Ministry with their exporters. We'll see if something comes out of there. If we got some type of an export curb, just to cut back on the amount of bushels leaving Russia, that could be an interesting piece to the puzzle.
No doubt. Thanks so much, John Heinberg with Total Farm Marketing Lab, where AgDay coming up.
So we're going to spend a little bit more time on the jet stream, not only where we are now or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but where we're going. What we're going to see is a more typical autumn pattern setting up across the United States. So we'll start off with this weekend, and I looked at it earlier. We looked at it earlier. Warmth this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday across the United States. But as we get into next week, so this is Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, start to see a trough dig down. It's a shallow one. It's not one that's coming all the way down here towards Oklahoma and Texas. A shallow one's going to dig down here to the south and kind of isolate itself both from the Midwest to the East Coast with some cooler than average temperatures. What you're starting to see show up is that yin and that yang, being the trough here and another ridge developing there. Things will continue to move through the atmosphere, so I'm not expecting a strong blocking pattern from this ridge. So watch what happens. This is on Tuesday. You got that trough working out with the cooler, drier air with it. A ridge trying to build back in. But in terms of the ridges we have seen the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, this is actually relatively shallow compared to the ones that were very strong and went way up here towards the Canadian United States border. So you have trough, ridge, trough. That pattern will allow these colder spells to come through, those cold fronts to come through as the ridges start to break down. So there's the jet stream on Wednesday. That white line kicks down here to the south, and that's going to allow this trough to dig deeper over here towards the west. And rather than exit to the northeast, this trough is going to work to the east across the United States. So that's your cooler, drier air Thursday, Friday, and Saturday working from the west to the east. So a couple of shots of some cooler, drier air out there rather than a stagnant pattern of heat and no rainfall. So this is Friday at 7 o'clock in the morning. Again, that ridge will be with us through the weekend. That shallow trough will try to develop by Sunday. Start off in Kentucky, sunny, high 72 degrees, low of 46. South Dakota, morning clouds, high around 66, low of 41. And then Mississippi, sunny, high of 85, low of 51.
Researchers are finding ways to use AI for smarter plant variety selection. We'll have details on that next. And later, holy trash pandas, Batman. We'll tell you why hundreds of raccoons are harassing a Washington woman today in the country. Artificial intelligence continues to innovate and develop. Scientists have found a way to use it in plant breeding programs. Now, this comes from Purdue University. Researchers there are using AI models to predict corn yields. Now, the technology blends information from remote sensing technology with environmental and genetic data, and then the technology they call a recurrent neural network factors everything together to forecast yield. Now, the scientists say now plant breeders can see how different traits react to varying conditions, which should allow them to select traits for future, more resilient varieties. And farmers may one day be able to use the technology to determine which varieties grow best in their region. New technology doesn't always make it to the field. That may be the case with a new loader designed by the Bobcat company. Check this thing out. The Rogue X2 is an all-electric, fully autonomous loader. Now, the company says it was built to explore the idea of how machines may work in the future. The Rogue X2 is powered by lithium-ion batteries with electric-powered lift and tilt rather than traditional hydraulics. Bobcat says the platform is a proving ground for innovation and has new patents pending. It also won a design competition called the Red Dot Award. Now, Bobcat says the machine is still in the research and development phase and is not commercially available. Not bobcats, but another wildlife favorite is taking over a house in Washington state. We'll show you what led to hundreds of raccoons harassing a woman next in the country.
Register now for the Milk Business Conference, December 10th and 11th in Vegas, for a chance to win tickets to the National Finals Rodeo while in town.
A love and appreciation of wildlife can be a good thing, but one woman appears to have taken it a step too far, so much so that she could hardly escape them. Now take a look at what sheriff's deputies saw when they pulled up to a home in Kitsap County in Washington state. Hundreds of hungry raccoons looking for their meal. Now, the homeowner told deputies she had been feeding the treasure cats on her property for more than 38 years. She told them the normal, beloved bandits are nice, but the new ones had started to scare her. Now, she said the trash pandas would scratch on the windows and the walls at all hours of the day, looking for her to feed them, and would stay until she did. She said she was forced to call for help because she said she couldn't leave the property. She was finally able to leave in her car. Deputies say the creatures aren't committing any crimes, so Fish and Wildlife will have to handle the eviction. And that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in Farm Country.